Hey there, Gateway. Welcome to Going Deeper, and we're up to Revelation chapter 10. Just a reminder of where we've got to in the book of Revelation so far. We've looked at chapter 1 to 3, and we've seen a vision of Jesus, and we've seen these 7 messages go out to 7 different churches. Then in Revelation 4 to 5, we've seen this throne room of heaven, this amazing picture of what's going on in heaven. And now we're in the kind of judgment section, if you like. We're in chapter 6 to chapter 16. And within that series, there are 3 sets of judgments. There are the 7 seal judgments, which we've looked at. There are then the 7 trumpet judgments, which we're in right now. And then the 7 bowl judgments. So we've seen a vision of Jesus. We've seen the messages to the churches. We've seen the throne room vision. We're now in the judgment section. We've done the seals, and we're up to the 6th trumpet judgment. But then there's this pause, just like there was for the seals in Revelation chapter 7. There's this pause on the 6th trumpet judgment, and we're coming now into this break. And this is Revelation chapter 10. And John, he sees another mighty angel. Another mighty angel. Who is this mighty angel? Well, some would say it's literally an angel. But remember, way back in Revelation 1, we saw how the word angel, angelos, could actually just mean a messenger. And so it could also be referring to Jesus here, actually. And I think I'd fall down on that understanding because really the description of this angel reminds us of descriptions of God in the Old Testament, and also reminds of descriptions of God in this book of Revelation. So he sees this mighty angel, and this angel is robed in a cloud, talking about the presence of God. Remember how the cloud would go with the Israelites once they were rescued out of Egypt. He was robed in a cloud with a rainbow above his head, and his face was like the sun. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it can be quite challenging going through all these judgments. My personal take is that they're all going on at the same time. It's not kind of a chronological story of judgments. But reading them, you can think, oh gosh, this is quite heavy going. I love these 2 words here. There was a rainbow above his head, and his face was like the sun. When we think of the rainbow, we're reminded of Genesis and that story of Noah, and what happens after God pours out his judgment upon the earth. He gives the sign of a rainbow to promise that never again will he destroy the earth in that way. And so here we're reminded of the mercy of God. But then what's next? His face was like the sun. His face was like the sun. I don't know if you know this, but the sun is 10,000 degrees Celsius. That's the kind of heat emitting from it. And we're 94 million miles away from it. Yet if we're not careful, it can burn us. It can literally burn our skin despite being 94 million miles away. So with the rainbow, we have the mercy of God, but with the sun, we have the sense of awe and otherness of God, and he is holy and other and different from us. There are then a number of other different descriptions of this mighty angel that I think is descripting Jesus, and he is holding a little scroll. So this is likely different, but very related to the scroll judgments that we've looked at in chapter 6 onwards. And it lays open in his hand. And this mighty angel, Jesus, he plants his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. So what is this speaking of? Well, we have the saying, don't we? I'm going to put my foot down on this. And really, there's this kind of same impression here that actually this Jesus coming here, putting his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, it's speaking of his authority over these things. And where's he come? He's come from heaven. So he has authority over the sea, over the land and over heaven. He has authority over everything, not least because we'll go on to see that he created everything, but also through dying upon the cross and raising again, he has rights to everything. And this is really kind of helpful for us to remind ourselves of, especially when we start to come into Revelation 13, where we're going to read about this beast coming from the sea. We're going to read about this other beast coming from the land. And so let's remind ourselves that actually, no matter what this beast does, Jesus is sovereign over everything, sovereign over what happens in the sea, and sovereign over what happens on the land. And he gives a loud shout, like the roar of a lion. I don't know if you've ever heard a lion roar before. It's kind of intimidating. And there's this sense of intimidation and authority and hugeness. Think to be able to put one foot on the land and one foot on the sea, that's huge. And no wonder when John is told to go and just take the scroll from his hand, he asks for it. There's this sense probably of righteous awe and wonder at this Jesus he's seeing. And then he hears of these 7 thunders being spoken of in verse 3. And he's told that he should not write down what these 7 thunders are speaking. And says here, seal up what the 7 thunders have said and do not write it down. And you think, wow, what on earth is going on here? What are these 7 thunders? Well, the answer is really easy and obvious. All you need to do is look up Deuteronomy 29, verse 29, because there, that verse will say, the secret things belong to the Lord our God. It's a secret. We don't know what these 7 thunders are. Many people will try and work out what they are, but it's a secret. Similar to Paul, remember 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 4, he went to the 3rd heaven and he saw things that he could not share. And it's likely, though, however, that there probably some other form of judgment. And so in this section, people often say, oh, there's 3 sets of 7 judgments. Well, actually, there's 4, but we just don't get to hear about what the thunders are about. It could be that God, in his mercy, is withholding further judgment that should be poured out. Then it goes on, and then the angel I had seen standing on the sea and on the land raised his right hand to heaven. He's kind of making a promise, and he swears by him who lives forever and ever. I found it really helpful when someone shared with me, when you're reading through the Bible, think about stoppers and blockers. Stoppers are those things that make you just stop and worship. And really, we've kind of had a bit of a stopper here. Wow, this awesome Lord who's sovereign over sea, land, and heaven. You know, that's a great point to just stop and worship. But also, what are some blockers? What makes you think, I don't understand that, what's going on there? And perhaps, like you, for me, there are many things in the book of Revelation with that. And this was one for me. He swore by him who lives forever and ever. And you may remember Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount said, do not swear an oath on anything. And it got me thinking, well, why is this mighty angel, why is this Jesus swearing by him, swearing by the Father here in this place? Well, I think ultimately I came to a place of realizing we need that. We need the promises of God, the promise that he makes by himself, to himself, for himself. We need those promises to cling to. And so he has a different rule for himself in that sense when it comes to making oaths or swearing by himself. And just going down then to kind of wrap this up, the angel then who has this open hand, Jesus, John takes it and he eats it. And we're going to look at some of this in the Sunday message and see about how it was sweet but also sour. But this has happened with Ezekiel and Jeremiah in the Old Testament. Both of them were commanded to eat the word that was given to them. And so really kind of halfway into this book, there's a recommissioning of John as he's commissioned to go. He was told, you must prophesy again. And I think we all need in our life that moment of recommissioning. God commissioned us when we first come to him, but he comes to us again and he commissions us again to go. And so what follows, what continues from here into chapter 11 and beyond, is really this word that John has eaten and has been in his mouth. And so we can sense there's more judgment to come, because it's kind of a bitter thing in his stomach. Hope that was helpful, and look forward to opening up Revelation chapter 11.